VLOOKUP stands for vertical lookup, and you often see this where you want to look up information somewhere else. It could be information from another sheet, from another workbook, on another network. The idea of a lookup you've probably seen on the internet when you buy things from someone like Amazon. Every time you enter in your postcode or zip code, it suddenly displays your whole address, and you can use that facility within Excel. For example, look up a name of a product, a customer's ID, and you might want to use it that when you type in a customer ID, it populates an invoice with their name and address. We got an example here on the screen. In the lower part, we've got an example of the database we're going to be looking at, the data list. Now, this is just a snapshot of it down here. It's actually on the next sheet along, just here. There's our data list. It's got these columns of data with all the information about our products. If we go back to this sheet, we'll see that along the top, we've got code, description, supplier, SKU and price. The idea is that somebody contacts us and quotes a product code. We want to be able to come over to here and type a product code like that, and all of the information about that product will suddenly appear here. Now, to do this, we're going to use a vertical lookup. So let's begin by making life easy for us and setting up a range name. If we go to the sheet that contains our data list, click anywhere to save us having to drag our mouse to select a huge data set. Let's just click anywhere and use the keyboard shortcut of Control A. That will select the entire data set. We then want to give it a name, so we're going to go up to our name box and we'll give this an alias such as stock. Enter that. We now refer to this data set as stock. We can go back to our previous sheet and begin to write our VLOOKUP. Now, to make it a lot easier to understand, I shall write down here, before we get into writing the formula up here, I shall begin by writing in plain English what the attributes are that you have to fill in for a VLOOKUP. So it begins with the word VLOOKUP, vertical lookup, open bracket. Now the first attribute is, what are you looking for? So we need to tell it what we're actually looking for. Now for us, it would be whatever happens to be typed in cell B4. That's what we're looking for. So what are you looking for? Well, that code that somebody's just given me. Comma. The next attribute is, and where will I find that particular code? Now this is where you specify where your table is, your data set. Now this could be on another sheet, as in our case, it could be in another workbook. But you put this down here. Now for us, that would be our data set that we've just named stock. Now this little snapshot of our stock database just below here, to give us an idea, because we're dealing with a vertical lookup, a VLOOKUP, although we're telling it, can you look for that code in this data set on the other sheet, it can't look anywhere but the first column. Hence the vertical lookup, the VLOOKUP. It looks down the first column. So what we have so far is, what are you looking for? This code here. Where will I find it? Well, you'll find it in my big database. it will then immediately look down the first column until it finds that code, and it will stop. The third attribute is, once I've found what you're looking for, which column of information would you like me to return back to you? Now this will always be a number that you put here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now say for example I was after the price of that product. I would put a number 5 there. Why? Because if you look at my table, the 5th column along contains the information I'm after. If I was after the supplier's name, then I would put a 3 there to say, can you return what's in column 3, which is the supplier. The final attribute is, would you like an exact match of what you're looking for? Remember we was looking up which is that code. Are we looking for an exact match? Now 9 times out of 10 you're always going to be wanting an exact match. You get a choice here. You either get an exact match or an approximate match. Now the approximate is kind of specialised, and we cover that in other videos. But majority of the time it's an exact match. If you're looking up an invoice number, you don't want an approximate match, you want the exact invoice number. If you remember those 4 things, what are you looking for? Where will I find it? Once I've found it, which column of information shall I return back to you? And that's it. So what we'll do is we'll try writing a VLOOKUP in here so that we can find the description for that product. So we begin by typing equals VLOOKUP open bracket. Now you'll notice that, as with all function words in Excel, when you do the open bracket part, it will always display the help just below it, as you can see here. Now you can see Microsoft use slightly different terminology to what I've just described, but it means the same. What, where, column, exact. So first of all, the lookup value, what am I looking for? Well, I'll be looking up whatever code is typed in here. So if I just click on that, that puts the B4 in there. Comma. The table array, where will I find it? This will be our table. Remember, we made it more convenient to ourselves by giving it a named range. We called it stock. So I type stock. It will then look in that database on the other sheet and look down the first column. Comma. The third attribute, the column index number. Which column would I like returned? Well, because I'm after the description of the product, then that's contained in the second column. So I will ask it to return what's in the second column. Comma. And the final attribute, true or false. You'll notice it brings up the bubble help to say, if you put true, I will find an approximate match for what you're looking for, or if you put the word false, I'll do an exact match. Now you can type the word false, but I tend to put 0 because in all products false is represented by 0. So I type 0, close the bracket, and there's my first VLOOKUP. If we enter that, we get the description for that code. And we can try this. If we change the code here to a different code, C554, enter that, the description changes as well. And that's your vertical lookup, your VLOOKUP.